Okay. Let's see. So we have quite some people attending. I think we had over 200 registrations. I just want to check if everyone can hear or see me because I don't have my self view. So maybe put up your hand if you can see me. Yeah. Okay, that's great. A lot of hands. Great to see all this. Yeah, participants are rolling in. We're now at 70. Great. 75 participants. Okay. Let's do one thing. I would like to see where everyone is calling from. So you have a Q&A box, if that's correct. So if you see the Q&A, maybe you can introduce yourself. Really short, like, hi, my name is John and I'm from the US, UK. Yeah, we have David from Manchester, UK, Diane, Melbourne, Australia, Bente, Netherlands, from Limburg, Helene, Brooklyn, Breukelen, yeah, Tamara from Canada, Jenica from Manila, Philippines, Tamara, Canada, Karen from Portugal, where it's very hot. I think it's very hot everywhere now, in Europe at least. I'm in Bulgaria in the mountains, and actually it is raining. Amy from the USA, Vanessa from Switzerland, Catherine, US, Lisa from the Netherlands, Amy, Colorado, US. Let's see, Western Canada, another Lisa, Stefan Glaus from Florida, USA, Sanna from the Netherlands, Laurie, James, Jeremy, Charlton. Hi, Charlton. Long time ago. Charlton was one of the first people I spoke with, one of the first coaches, psychologists. Vienna, we have here North Carolina, USA. Daphne from Singapore. Kate, Los Angeles. Pijnakker, Esther from the Netherlands. Christine from Germany. Julie from Manchester. Julie, yeah, from Manchester, UK. Lisa, we see you again from South Africa. Linda, Colorado. Beverly, Switzerland, Boston, Frankfurt, Romania, Amsterdam, Luxembourg, Netherlands. Felipe from Ecuador. Leiden, United States, Germany, Singapore. Yeah, so all over the world. We're now at 111 participants. So let's start the meeting. Welcome all of you to today's first guild meeting. I want to do a little introduction about what the guild meeting is. It's now an open to everyone guild meeting. And that means that everyone outside of the certification process can join this meeting. What is the guild? The guild is a community of coaches and brain health analytics practitioners sharing their vision, sharing their practices, sharing their experiences with the market. And I want to do a short introduction before we start with the speakers. So I'm gonna go to the presentation. Yeah, the speakers we have today, we have Leanne, who is the Brain Health Analytics head coach, and she's basically doing all the assessment of the certifications, and she's going to tell something about the Island Hero and what that is and how it influences performance and how she uses the cognitive clarity scan to go deeper in the Island Hero. Then we have Anike. Anike is she has been in corporate working for corporations for a long time, American Express, Apple, and she will talk about the imposter syndrome and pattern clusters with the cognitive clarity scan. Then we have Maurice Bonen from the Netherlands. He is also a BHA coach, and his topic will be a client success story with the cognitive clarity scan. And it's a story that is a very deep story. It's about someone that he coaches on PTSS, that has been in the war zone so many years ago, like decades ago, in I believe it is Lebanon, but he will tell you more about it. And he's been working on his patterns with the cognitive clarity scan, and actually a lot of his patterns disappeared, or at least became less severe. Yeah, and this is what we do with our scan. We developed, of course, this methodology to be connected to different modalities and different coaching practices around the world. Then we have Andrew Lavin, and he's talking about Jungian coaching. A famous quote, of course, that Carl Jung had is, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." And basically, that's what we do with our scan, of course, is we make those patterns that are invisible to us, to the naked eye, we make them visible with analytics. Yeah. And I will do also myself, Björn, of course, I will introduce the guild to you and what it can be, but mainly the guild is a network, an international network of practitioners and coaches and psychologists who actually want to deepen their impact and practices with brain health analytics and the cognitive clarity scan. Once I started this mission, what is it, about 4 or 5 years ago, out of, well, let's say rock bottom. I was really rock bottom after a successful career in business, working for a lot of corporations in the tech industry. I found myself rock bottom because basically I was a workaholic and an alcoholic. And before I went to rehab, I crashed my car just 2 days before that. And I said, never again. I want to change myself. And I had a background in psychology. I did many years of self-development, and from a very young age. I think I was maybe 15, 16, 17, because I grew up in a family with a lot of violence and a lot of alcoholism. My father was also a workaholic and an alcoholic. And basically, I hit rock bottom. And when I was in the rehab in South Africa, I said to myself, once I get out of here, I'm going to help people with how I got help in this rehab. And this was basically through deep psychological assessments, a lot of schema work, a lot of system work, well, anything you can name. But I said, okay, how can I use my expertise in software and in the business world to give something back to society? And my vision already then, and I have it here on a paper, written out and drawn out, was to have a big network of coaches and psychologists that actually would carry this vision forward. And they would carry this vision forward by stories, right? And by own experiences. And that's why we ask everyone that wants to join our team and to join our network that they need to go through a transformation themselves via the cognitive clarity scan. Well, as you can see, I can talk hours about this. The guild and the community is going to be much bigger than any of us can expect. And yeah, well, let's dive into it. And let's start with our first speaker, Leanne. Let's see if we can get Leanne to speak.
Hello.
Yeah. Can everyone see Leanne?
Yeah. Oh, there we are. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Perfect. Wonderful. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Leanne Christine. I'm the head coach and program mentor for brain health analytics and the cognitive clarity scan. And I'm super excited. I'm going to share with you a story today about one of the clients that I've been working with. His name is Clay, and he's a high performing professional. So he's a senior lead technical engineer. He's working in a B2B client facing, high pressure, fast paced business. So that's Clay. And a little bit about what I do. I work with high performers. So professional leadership positions, entrepreneurs and founders. And usually they come to me because they're in a place where they're just in these cycles or patterns of so much pain, really, overwhelm, burnout overall, fatigue. They usually are at a place where they're not fully trusting their decision making. So they're kind of, the burnout is kind of suppressing their trust in themselves. They have a lack of work-life balance, things like that, and they're questioning whether or not they can actually continue like this. They're at a breaking point, and they want to break free from these patterns and cycles. So we start working together. I like to think of subconscious patterns in the cognitive clarity scan, right? Because we have 20 subconscious patterns that we get to isolate and look at. I like to think of them as distorted geniuses, because there's two sides to a pattern, right? There's the side that is the contracted, limited side that keeps you small, and then there's the other side that is the genius, right? The inherent wisdom that is also present inside a pattern. So the hidden strengths, right? Because for some reason, due to past trauma or whatever it was, and memories and experiences, we've created systems and ways to cope with that. But we also have the positive sides. We have the sides that are the wisdom and the inherent strength in there. So I like to work with clients to begin sort of unraveling those limiting sides and really focusing on those hidden strengths and having those be the empowered, unimpeded by limitation, the way that we embody ourselves every day. So Clay is an interesting guy. He is incredibly creative, very empathic actually, but still have performing in this environment, right, that he has created for himself. So he came to me completely depleted, exhausted, just in this cycle where he was working overtime. He really lost himself inside this position of being the island hero. And he said, Leanne, I'm alone. I am completely alone. And it was so isolating where he had placed himself, because he really believed that he was the expert at solving problems. So because he was client facing, anytime a client came to him with a problem, no matter what, he would say yes. So it just kept building like a sandwich. Just picture that, like a 10-story building of mattresses, just like problem after problem after problem, and he would expedite whatever came next, and there was no real like he wasn't sharing that load with anybody. He was taking it all on for himself. So he was feeling also very disconnected from the people around him. So his coworkers, management, things like that. He basically thought of himself as a fixing machine, right? Just kind of like very detached from his own humanity in a way, and his own lack of joy, because he didn't have that. He wasn't connected to it. So he had like severe stomach pain and massive headaches. So it got to the point where every morning, just the idea of checking his email was creating this tension in his body and these headaches. So he felt basically he was in survival mode pretty much all of the time. And and he didn't feel authentic. So he wasn't really answering questions based on any kind of internal wisdom and somatic presence in his body. It was just like a click. Like he called them, I give them pat answers, right? It's just a reflexive, generic answer. Yeah, I can do that. It's probably this, but I don't know. We'll see. So he took the scan, the cognitive clarity scan, and it was a huge, huge eye opener for him. So of the 20 patterns that it identifies. He had 18. He had almost all of those patterns actively impacting his life and his decision making and his emotions. So 18 out of those. So 3 scores were at the highest they can get. So emotional deprivation, social isolation, and approval seeking. So those are the 3. And as soon as he saw approval seeking, he knew that was the big spot where it was causing a lot of pain in his life, because he knew right away, but he didn't know any of the details because he couldn't figure this out. He didn't know what to do about the cycle he was in. He didn't know where to start. He didn't know what was causing it. He just knew he was in it, and it was like a runaway train. So he needed some help to slow everything down, take a look at what it could be, get some clarity, and have a place to focus on so that he could get some relief. So that's what the scan was able to do for him, like right away. So what we began to discover after working together, even on the first session, right? Because when you go through the scan on your first session, it's a huge eye opener. You can get relief just in the fact that you've read them, you're understanding things. You basically have these aha moments again and again. Oh my God. Oh yes, that makes complete sense. And for him, that's what that was like. It was a big aha moment. And he realized that he had put himself in the belief that he was the only one who could solve these problems, and that he could do the impossible, right? I can do the impossible. It doesn't matter what it is, I can do it. So he put himself in that high standard. Another pattern he had that he scored very high on was called unrelenting standards, which is perfectionism overall. And so approval seeking for him was the idea that if he could be this island hero, if he could be the one saving the day all the time, he would finally feel loved. And it took him a while to actually arrive at this place because he didn't know that was what was behind it. So basically, he said to himself, if I'm not the island hero, if I'm not that person to not just customers and upper management, then I won't be loved. That was the belief. So that was running all of those patterns, the perfectionism, the approval seeking. But at the end of the day, it was all emotional deprivation in a way, right? So that was the driver, because that starts so early in our development as kids. When we're not getting that presence, we're not being mirrored, we're not getting our needs met, we're not being acknowledged. So we begin to create these adaptive ways of coping with that lack of presence and love. And then so what we do is we try to be perfect to get that love. We try to get more approval, because if we get that, that means finally we'll arrive there. We'll get what we need. And so we did pivot to emotional deprivation. So we're focusing on that more now. But after only 4 weeks, when Clay took his scan again, this is after 4 weeks, his scores went down tremendously. 9 active patterns. So his patterns decreased by 50%, his active patterns. And he realized just by looking at that he was living in the past. So when he did his scan the first time, he answered the questions authentically and honestly. But what he didn't realize is that he was living so deeply in the past that his answers to those questions were from the past trauma. It was from past beliefs. So now when he did the scan again with all this awareness and all the work that we've done and the movement that we'd made, he realized that was an old me, and now there's a new me emerging. And so now Clay has boundaries. Okay, so the hardest part for him was to be able to give these problems or these items that had to be fixed, because he's in tech, right? It has to be paid attention to. It has to be resolved. So he's already been passing it up the line. He had to pass it up to upper management. He had to, but he didn't want to, because he wanted that love and approval. So now he's doing that. He's able to do that. It's titrated, right? Because he needs to feel safe when he does that, when he delegates. And then the experience he gets after it is validating and trains his body. So he's in the process of doing that one step at a time. And he said it's life-changing. He now takes lunch. He doesn't work past his end of day boundary. So he has space to recover and relax and fill his own cup. He says that now when he gives answers to coworkers, it comes from a more authentic wisdom place, and he brings his body into the decision making. So he didn't have a somatic connection to his body. So he was all, all in the mind, very cognitive. So now he listens to his body and the signs and signals that it gives him when he knows, okay, something feels a little off. I'm going to pause and I'm going to think about what I want to do, what decision I want to make, who I want to give this to, and why, from a more spacious position instead of his pat answers that he would normally give and take it on himself. So he's sharing the load, which he never did before. The way that he communicates has increased. People have come to him now, coworkers, and said, you're actually a great leader, and I really like what you said and how you handled that situation. In the past, he would just sit there and he wouldn't either say anything or say, yes, I'll do it, I'll fix it. So now he has more of an authentic leadership communication style, and people are noticing, which makes a big difference in his work. So now he's building better connections, because when he was in the burnout cycle, he was disconnected from his coworkers and himself. So he had a high score on depersonalization, lack of empathy. And then his exhaustion was way high too. And his personal accomplishment that he felt overall, like his ability to feel like what he's doing even has a purpose or a meaning, that was very low. But now all those scores have gone down for depersonalization and exhaustion, and his personal accomplishment has gone up, and his happiness index has gone up. So his scores have gone up and down appropriately where they need to be. So it's baby steps, but it's happening and it's changing his life, and he feels like he wouldn't have been able to make this shift without this kind of clarity and this guidance. So I'm super happy for him. It's just such rewarding work, and no matter this, it doesn't have to be fast transformation. What matters is these small changes are putting him on a course of fulfillment and purpose and happiness. And he said to me, he's still exploring the love. He said to me just the other day, he said, Leanne, I feel like I'm in a bubble and love is in there with me, but I'm not letting it inside me. So I thought that was such a beautiful reflection on his understanding of his connection to love and why he's, what's even happening. So this is a starting place for him, because he never even would have approached that subject or even thought that was something he needed to think about or even address. So now he's in a very powerful position where he can address those things, and that will consequently have a waterfall effect across all areas of his life, his work, his relationships, and himself. So he's in a beautiful place. So I'm just super pleased and really happy to share that with you.
Thank you, Leanne, for sharing that. And I want to I have a question there. I don't know if you can. We're just.
I see your hand.
Yeah. What I wanted to know is, because, of course, we have here. I don't know if you can see my screen.
Yep.
So before he had 18 active patterns, now he has 9 active patterns, which is interesting. I saw a question in the chat. Okay, can we see the scan results? Yeah, of course we can share them, but we will not do that right now. But what I'm more interested in, and that's a question I want to ask you, and I think we spoke about this case before, like a long time ago. The end results are, of course, they are amazing when you can get 18 active patterns back to 9. and scores of 1, and 1 in our scan is basically 100%. You get them down. But what I find maybe even more interesting is the persona. Clay is a senior tech engineer. Of course, I've been in the tech industry for a long time, for over 20 years, and I've worked with a lot of techies. What I find more interesting is how did the scan and the analytics dashboard, because it's analytics, and the data actually help you get the permission to coach on certain patterns. Because what we usually see with very cognitive people is that they're in their mind a lot, and it's very hard to even identify patterns, right? So how did this help you, or maybe I'm steering the conversation in a way, but did this help you in gaining access to coach him by giving him data and visual, representation of his patterns?
Yeah, I would say absolutely, because that's what he's used to, data and information. And it was clear as day on the screen. I mean, you can't deny it. It's all there. And he watched some of the videos, the training videos. So there's so much credibility behind the work. It's over 40 years of behavioral and psychological research that's been done by Stanford, Harvard, Oxford. And so that's undeniable. That's a huge sample size that this information is based on, and these averages are based on, and these scores. So it is so accurate because he saw himself in those descriptions. He saw himself. It was so clear to him that that's what was happening. And obviously he took some reflective time. He really did. And our conversations are really important because, I understand the scan. I work with it every day, and I don't know if I'm up to thousands, but I've seen a lot of scans, and I'm starting to see patterns. I'm starting to see all the interconnectedness. I see a lot of the hidden depth of that scan. So me as a facilitator, I get to ask those questions based on that history and knowledge that I'm gaining, and I can ask questions that are game changers for him that he wouldn't have even thought to even ask himself. Even the way that he spoke. He said to me the other day, he sent me a voice clip, and he said, "Leanne, I'm rewatching our sessions, and I can't believe you understood what I was even saying. I sound insane. I said, "Somehow, Clay, I understood you. I don't know, but this is the relationship that we're building, and the scan is our way in. It's undeniable information. Obviously, they're going to validate that through their own reflection, but the data is there. It's reliable. It's credible. It's incredible." And we had a place to start, so it was very quick. 4 weeks, and already his life was changing dramatically, and he had a way in to explore himself that he didn't have before. So a context to connect to. So yeah, hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and that's a good bridge, because what a lot of coaching is and also therapy is built upon is intuition, and this takes the intuition and guesswork out of the game. And I hear this many times from many of the coaches that use the methodology, is that it shortens the time. Yeah. And basically, psychological assessments are used. It's not only us that uses that. I do think we have a very unique way of how we use it, and also a very unique. Well, it's paid. We basically researched over 200 assessments, and this is a combination of 8 or 9 of them. More on that later, actually, because I'm gonna share a lot more about the future of our scan, and about upcoming updates. But yeah, that it shortens the time. That's one of the main things. Okay, I want to go to the next one. Thank you very much, Leanne, for
You're
your
welcome.
sharing. And most of you people will get to know Leanne, especially when you get the assessment with her. And I would like to go to our next speaker. And our next speaker on the list is Andrew. Andrew Lavin. Andrew is a Jungian coach. And yeah, we talked already a little bit about intuition. I know Carl Jung a little bit, or a little bit of what he has said in the past. But Andrew can tell us much more about it. So I would like to give Andrew the stage, and maybe you can do a short introduction, and then next to that you can tell, or you can share what the combination of Jungian coaching and the cognitive clarity scan, why that is so unique and how it helps you.
Okay, thanks, Bjorn. Can everybody see me? There we go.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, it's an interesting story. I guess, first of all, the way I came to brain health analytics in the first place was the quote that's on the brain health analytics main website from Carl Jung himself, and that actually caught me. I can't remember how I found it, but I was looking for something and I looked at that quote and it sent me to the brain health analytics website, and I'm like, what is this? And it's turned out to be a fantastic partnership. So yeah, I'm Andrew Lavin. I'm a Jungian coach, which is coaching based on the psychological models and principles developed by Carl Jung. Carl Jung was more or less the originator of working with the unconscious. Jungian psychology is psychology of the unconscious. And so it was really interesting to me to come upon brain health analytics, which claimed to be a tool to access what they called subconscious patterns and subconscious content. I should say that there's a little bit of an academic debate between unconscious and subconscious. And there probably is a distinction there. Jungians talk about the unconscious, brain health analytics talks about the subconscious. I more or less use the two terms interchangeably. I think for coaching and the work that we're doing, they more or less are, but just a word about that. I come to coaching from the corporate world. I was in executive leadership for a number of financial services companies for a number of years, and have sat at the table with the types of clients that a lot of us work with that are suffering from burnout, executive high stress environments, who are high performing, they're accomplished, and yet they're sitting there wrestling with a question that often they just can't name. It's there behind the surface. It's there buried somewhere deep, and it nags, but they can't quite name it, let alone answer it. And so those are a lot of the clients that I work with. And so I hope to tell you a little bit about today, what the cognitive clarity scan has done in my work to help me really zero in and focus on what those hidden questions and what those hidden patterns are that a lot of high performing individuals can't even identify themselves. Trying to think which details I want to give them. Well, actually, let me just start with the sort of the story that I want to tell, and we'll go from there. I was working with a client at the time that I started doing my brain health analytics certification process, and I had been working with her for about, I think it was about 2 months. She is a woman who had been trying for many years to break into the interior design profession in her locale, and had been struggling and just wasn't finding success. Her background, she graduated from a rather prestigious program in the field. She had lots of connections in the industry. She had established relationships with contractors and providers, and everything from the outside looked perfect for her. It looked like she was in the perfect position to start a really thriving, successful interior design business. And yet, for years, I think it had been about 3 years, she had just been hitting roadblock after roadblock. And so she came to me for coaching and how do I get my business started? Like, what's stopping me here? I don't understand it. And for about 2 months, we talked about all of the things that she was seeing as blocks. It was that the contractors were irresponsible. It was that she didn't have enough in connections in the community, that people were really respecting her work, but then they were going out and hiring different designers, that she wasn't in with the right people. And we worked through these in our coaching sessions, one after the other, and we were developing strategies. We were developing different approaches to dealing with all of these problems, trying to decide where they were coming from. And we just weren't getting anywhere. And it was probably about 2 months, and I was feeling like the coaching just wasn't successful. I think she was feeling the same way. And then the cognitive clarity scan kind of came along, and I thought, I need someone to try this out with. Let's give this a try. I don't have anything to lose. So this was my first experience with the scan, and I offered to have her take the scan and just see what it came up with. So she took the scan, and like Leanne's client, the highest scoring subconscious pattern that emerged was emotional deprivation. And as we looked at the results, unlike Leanne's client, that surprised her and she didn't understand. That didn't make any sense to her. She said she didn't feel emotionally deprived. She said it didn't make any sense, let alone understand how that could possibly be contributing to her professional blocks that she was experiencing. Just didn't make sense to her. So what I want to do now is sort of put that up against the work that I do as a Jungian coach and show how the two of them together actually provide a really powerful tool for looking at what's in the unconscious. So we had the cognitive clarity scan on the one hand, giving my client some information that she didn't understand, that she didn't really know what to do with, didn't make sense to her. I then brought in some of my Jungian coaching tools. And what we did is I had my client, Ellen, I had her identify a symbol which represented this thing that she didn't understand, which was emotional deprivation. And so this is a lot of what I do with clients is we work with symbols. And so what I'll do is I'll have a client go through a series of symbols, and I'll just say, pick the one that stands out, pick the one that to you represents, in this case, emotional deprivation. So we went through all these pictures and no, and she kept going on. Eventually we came to an image of Poseidon, the Greek god with the trident, the god of the sea. And she's like, that one, that's the one. Okay. And so what we did is we did a Gestalt dialogue exercise where I had her do a dialogue with Poseidon. And so she starts having this conversation with Poseidon, and she starts complaining to Poseidon about her business and about all the problems with the vendors and the contractors, and she can't get her business going. Kind of the same thing she had been doing with me for a couple of months. And at one point, well, Poseidon, the way she responded as Poseidon was very dismissive. It was very cold. It was very disconnected, which I thought was interesting. But at one point in that conversation she was having, she paused, and speaking as Poseidon, she said, "Why do you keep calling me Poseidon?" And Ellen answered and said, "Well, you're Poseidon, that's your name." And Poseidon responded and said, "That's not my name. Stop calling me Poseidon." Client said, "Well, then what's your name?" And the image responded, "My name's Clark." Clark is her husband. And she just started weeping. She just started crying, because in that moment, the power of the symbol and the Jungian work that I was engaging with, combined with the cognitive clarity scan result of emotional deprivation, those two things came together in what was really a rather magical moment of this insight that emotional deprivation is something that she was experiencing and engaging with the primary relationship in her life, and that actually it had nothing to do with the vendors or the contractors or the ins in the industry, that it was about her husband. One of the things we talk about as Jungian coaches a lot is that it's never about the thing that you think it's about. And so anytime a client comes to us with an issue, a problem they're trying to solve, a challenge that they're trying to overcome, a relationship that's in trouble, we're always looking for what's it really about, because it's never about what you think it's about. And so in this case, her struggles with her profession and her career weren't about all of the things she thought it was about. It was about her husband. What's interesting is that once we started working with that, she took the scan a couple of months later, and it was really unchanged. So I can't give this success story about how the scan changed, because she started going to therapy with her husband and doing couples therapy, a really long and slow process. And so that work sort of got taken out and engaged someplace else. But and the scan didn't change. But what happened was her career started taking off. It removed the block from her career. And now we're about 3 months on, 4 months on. And I just got a message from her about 2 weeks ago that she has a firm that she's opening. She just secured space for her firm. She'll be opening her firm, I think, in the beginning of September. She's got clients coming on, and interestingly, at the same time, she still has this thing with her husband that she's working on the side. But what it did is it removed that as a block to her career, which I think is a perfect example of what we're calling these hidden patterns that are affecting things in ways that we don't realize, in ways that we don't understand. And so the cognitive clarity scan combined with these Jungian tools just really magically said, there's what it is. Let's set that aside, and now you can go forward with this challenge that you're bringing to me as a coach. So yeah, I would say, like Leanne, it's just been amazingly gratifying to have this tool that so quickly and efficiently and accurately helps me identify what it is to work on. Jungian tools can be really slow and they require a lot of patience. And so, especially as I'm working with a lot of executives and these driven, successful businessmen and women, they don't have a lot of patience. They don't have a lot of time. And so, one of the things that I've struggled with is, how do you get the hook in when it seems to require too much patience, sometimes too much time. And the cognitive clarity scan has been a great addition to my tool set that just gives me a quick, efficient way to find the thing to focus in on that I can then start doing the work with. And so it's been a fantastic tool for me to add to my practice. I'm grateful to be a part of this.
Thank you, Andrew, and
Yeah.
also thank you for sharing this, especially the thing you mentioned, of course, and that's what I like about the Jungian school of thought, is when someone comes to you, it's always what is it about, right? Can we
Right.
dive a layer deeper? Because in coaching, and all of the coaches in this meeting should know, if you haven't asked the why at least three times, then you're not at the right layer.
At least I've found, yeah.
At least, yeah. And another thing you say is yeah, the people that we coach, they don't have the time, or they don't want to make the time to that it takes so long, and this scan gives you a way in so that it can be faster. And that's exactly what we want. Not only faster, but that we are at the right place. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's kind of shifted my clientele, which was kind of what I was looking for. I've worked with a lot of people who are in the artistic and sort of more right-brained sort of professions, and they tend to be more amenable to spending a little bit more time and taking the process a little bit more slowly. And so that's been fantastic. That aligns perfectly with Jungian work. But there was this block for me in dealing with the kinds of people that Brain Health Analytics talks a lot about, these highly driven, very successful executive types, where I just wasn't able to break into that clientele quite as well, because, as you say, they just don't have the time. And so it's been really helpful to have this to just get right to it.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing this as well, because this is exactly why also we created the guild, is to give different types of coaches actually the empowerment to also get different streams of clients. And especially, as you say, the more artistic they might do things on feeling. And it has a reason that we're called the cognitive clarity scan. What I always say, I'm a very cognitive person. I'm also a person that is really in tune with his emotions, but it took me a long time to get there, right?
Yeah.
And I always say, and many of the coaches with us, they say, how can you go from the brain to the heart to the gut, and all these layers in between, so that we're not like we're multidimensional people, so to say. And I'm very happy, and I will come to that a little bit later, also for the people that are listening. I had a talk today with someone in a coffee shop, and she asked me, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, we're having this meeting today with a community of global practitioners of what we do, and what we do is transforming like how people get to know themselves and really go layers deeper in self-development." And one thing I said is, we created the tool, but when I saw this mission, I saw different people. And I think we spoke with, me and the team spoke with over 5,000 coaches and psychologists, therapists, and consultants over the past year. And what we see is that everyone has basically a different personality, and that's why we also attract different customers. And that's basically the goal, is that we don't only have the high performing executive, but basically can help anyone in society, because it's uplifting the baseline of society. So that's one person at a time, and that doesn't exclude anyone. But that's just a side note. Okay, thank you very much, Andrew. And
thank you.
We'll go on to the next speaker. Let me share my screen again. Yes. Next one up is Annika. So Annika worked in corporate for 28 years, corporate marketing, leadership, a lot of leadership roles in teams of American Express, Apple, and she made the transition from corporate to go into coaching executives in different ways. And she will talk more about the imposter syndrome and subconscious patterns work with high achievers, as we call them. Annika, welcome. Let's see if we can find you. Yes, there you are.
Can you see me? Can you hear me and see me? Fantastic.
Yes.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. It's fantastic to be here. As Bjorn said, my name is Annika Waribi, and I'm calling you from, or rather, I'm joining this call from Surrey in the UK, and I think it's about 39 degrees in this room, so I'm kind of melting as we speak. But I'm very, very excited to be here. And thank you for that introduction, Bjorn. So Bjorn is absolutely right. I spent about 28 years in the corporate world, mainly in marketing leadership roles, working for big companies like Amex and Apple. But I also freelanced and did some consulting for small companies, startups, and also, some really cool, funky art institutions as well. But about 4 years ago, I decided to retrain as a coach after recognizing that the part of my corporate career that I found most meaningful was helping people grow, navigate challenges, and build confidence. And I imagine that's the same for everybody that's kind of joined us today. So as Bjorn said, I mainly work with executives and high achievers, but also pivoters, right? People like me who have left the corporate world and are doing something different. And the kinds of topics we cover are career transitions, leadership growth, and confidence. But I'm really passionate about this topic of imposter syndrome because it's something that I struggled with a lot in my career, and I still do. And as a result of that, I did a certification in imposter syndrome coaching last year. Now, I came across brain health analytics from a post that I saw on LinkedIn, and I was immediately intrigued as well. What really resonated with me was the cognitive clarity scan, but it validated something that I see every day in coaching. Most confidence challenges, I think, that people come to coaching to talk about are not necessarily capability challenges. They're challenges to do with subconscious patterns, right? And this is terminology that I now understand and I'm now able to talk to my clients about. Many of the leaders I work with are incredibly successful on paper, but internally they're saying things to themselves like, I'm not good enough. I don't belong here. I'll eventually be exposed as a fraud. I mean, the word fraud is just so kind of fraught with all kinds of issues there. So they're operating from this place of self-doubt and a constant feeling of, I'm not enough. Now, these patterns, and we know this, right? These patterns are often deeply rooted and highly automated. They've kind of become wired responses over time. So what's the connection with imposter syndrome? I'm just going to be a tiny bit boring for a second and just give the definition, because I think there are a lot of myths about imposter syndrome. So according to the British Medical Association, imposter syndrome is that feeling of inadequacy that persists despite evidence of success. So in essence, it's a sensation of chronic self-doubt. But also imposter syndrome, now I understand, right, is really a cluster of subconscious patterns that cause chronic self-doubt. So it's not simply low confidence. No, that's a myth. So what I discovered when I did my certification in imposter last year was that these feelings always have some kind of origin story. They often date back to our early childhoods when we were inadvertently assigned some sort of childhood role. And that childhood role probably had associated narratives that we kind of deeply seeped into our subconscious. So for example, I have a client who was the quiet one in her family. She came from a family with a really overbearing father, really dominant sister, and she could never get a word in edgeways. And if she spoke up, she would be shouted down. So what did she do? She learned to stay quiet, to fly under the radar and become invisible. She became the quiet one. Now, fast forward 30 years, she's now a qualified barrister. But she came to me in our coaching sessions and she said, I feel like an imposter. When I try and speak up and advocate for my clients, I feel like an imposter because, she had learned that pattern from early childhood to be quiet. But that pattern wasn't serving her, right? So I think what's clear is that imposter syndrome isn't just about self-doubt. It's also, outdated narratives and early learned subconscious patterns. And these patterns is how we as children kind of earned love, safety, and belonging. Leanne, I know you touched on this earlier. And often the resulting behaviors, right, were about self-protection and coping strategies. They don't represent the current truth. And they certainly didn't represent the current truth of my client, right? So what we also know about some of these feelings of imposter syndrome is that they're often triggered by major transitions, like a big promotion or a period of reinvention, or even in situations where you have to stand on stage or in a bright auditorium. So in my client's case, when she qualified as a barrister, that was the point of major transition where she began to feel psychologically untethered. So she started to catastrophize and she started to demonstrate other fear-based behaviors, flight, freeze, fawn, but also perfectionism, people-pleasing, and over-preparing. So when my client did the cognitive clarity scan, it was fascinating because it really identified patterns that have always been there, but she'd never really thought about. Subjugation, right? This is that pattern where she would feel, if I assert myself, I'm going to be rejected. Defectiveness, shame, mistrust, fear of failure, approval seeking, negativity. These are some of the patterns that pinged really, really highly when she was going through the cognitive clarity scan. So I see a huge overlap between kind of the root causes and subconscious behavior patterns of my clients' imposter syndrome. So for me as a coach, why does this all matter, right? We know this. I mean, all of us are in the world of either supporting our clients through psychotherapy or coaching. But what we know, and this is what I was working with my client on, is that the overworking and the over-preparing and the perfectionism that she was demonstrating obviously can look like leadership strengths, but internally they came at that cost of burnout, anxiety, poor self-worth, and ultimately unsustainable performance. So I'm still very early in my use of the cognitive clarity scan. I have a couple of clients and a lot of clients that I'm talking to about it. But what I really love about the brain health analytics approach is that it gives language and visibility to these subconscious drivers. So with my client, my quiet client, it's helped move the conversation from what's wrong with me to what pattern am I operating from? Because she knows what the patterns are, right? So she'll come to sessions and she'll say, I was really operating from the subjugation pattern, this sense that I have to hide, I can't speak up, because if I speak up and assert myself, I'm going to be shouted down. And again, remember, that was a pattern that she learned from a very young age. It was a pattern that she adopted as a coping mechanism to deal with very difficult family situation. But that's not her present truth. She is a badass lawyer, right? She's able to advocate for her clients, but it took her doing a lot of this work, identifying, naming the patterns to be able to say, oh my gosh, I can actually choose a different way of being. So for me, it's been fascinating to kind of walk alongside my client as she's embarking on this journey and giving language to some of the things that she's been struggling with, but also helping her to kind of reframe. Okay, I'm not the invisible one anymore. Who do I want to be? Okay, let's reframe that. What are the actions I need to take? And how can I step into that confidence to be a bit more assertive? So for me, that's where I think imposter syndrome coaching and the BHA framework kind of complement each other really beautifully. The scan helps me identify the subconscious architecture, very similar to what Andrew was saying before. We have a mechanism, we have a tool, we have a language that helps us identify with our partner, with our clients, what the subconscious architecture is. And then the coaching I do with my clients is really about building awareness, challenging those patterns and narratives, and then creating new, sort of more healthier ways of thinking, leading and performing. So, I mean, I think ultimately both approaches are about helping people move from fear-driven performance to grounded confidence. So it's been an absolute joy to discover the cognitive clarity scan. It's been amazing to take it myself and to see the patterns change. But it's really amazing to work with a client that kind of thinks, this is just the way I am. I am the quiet one. No, you're not the quiet one. That's what you were told when you were 4 years old. And the patterns, the subconscious patterns that you developed to cope with that situation when you were 4 years old do not serve you today. They don't represent your current truth, and we can break away from that and define a new way of working. So it's been fascinating. It's been an absolute joy, and I'm really thankful that I discovered the scan, and I really hope that I can introduce it to more clients. So thank you.
Well, thank you a lot, Anike, and thank you for sharing this. We see this a lot, and you see this probably more, that a lot of high achieving people, while you're talking about your client being a lawyer, they have this imposter syndrome. That's why they work so hard to keep on proving themselves. Thank you for sharing your insights here. There's a lot of golden nuggets in there, I would say. Thanks, Anike. Then let's go on to the next speaker. And the next speaker is going to be, I have to go back into my presentation. Maurice Bona, I spoke with him today, and Maurice is a coach for founders, for businessmen and executives, and Maurice has a very very deep story to tell because one of his clients, he suffers from PTSD, basically from some experiences in warfare. It has been some decades ago, and Maurice has been helping his client in combination with the BHA methodology and the cognitive clarity scan to basically work on PTSD. So I want to give Maurice the stage. Maurice, please give a short introduction about yourself and also about your client. I think that's even more interesting to see, okay, where does your client come from? What were his main troubles, and what have you been what were you able to achieve with him using the cognitive clarity scan? Welcome, Maurice. I will give you the stage. Let's see. Yeah, there you are.
Yes, thank you. All right. Yes, thanks for the introduction. As Björn said, I've been helping my clients for 17 years now in the role of personal trainer or coach. Next to that, I've been a business owner as well. I've just sold that business to my business partner. We had 2 personal training studios. So I also have experience with being a business owner next to being a coach and a trainer. So I ran into brain health analytics, I think in February. And for the to start up with experience and with guiding people, they wanted to pick at least 1 or 2 clients to work with. So I'm going to tell you about one of the clients I've been working with personal training and some rehab training for about a year and a half. And I asked him, I am going to coach with this tool. And, because of his background, I thought, well, this would be a really interesting person to test this concept with. So about this client, well, actually, when he came to me, it was without hope. He is 65 years old, and for about 45 years, so nearly his entire adult life, he carried the heavy burden of severe PTSD. This was from a 6.5-month time in a special ops unit when he was stationed in Lebanon. So most of his men in his unit of 10, they actually developed PTSD as well. And tragically, he was actually the one doing the least worse. So we spent decades trying every treatment available without success. And to cope with this, he became a high-functioning alcoholic, drinking every single night for 45 years just to sedate himself against relentless nightmares, panic attacks. So then eventually, about 5 years ago, his body just totally collapsed. He developed polyneuropathy, which in his case, it deteriorates all of his muscles, with specifically now the loss of feeling in his feet, lower legs, and also causing tremors and shaking when trying to move. And next to that, he has also developed obesity, high blood pressure, and gut problems. And what makes this case even more intense is that this man is a passive observer. He is a highly successful businessman and who actually studied psychology and ran a coaching company to also specifically understand his own mind. So he knew every therapy in the book. He knew exactly what to expect from traditional coaches, and he knew that they had all failed him until that point. And this is also why I intentionally chose him for this method, because he was my ultimate challenge. If this could work for him, it could work for anyone. But honestly, given a 45 years history of trauma, even I didn't expect what happened next. So could you show the results from the test now, please? Okay, thank you. Okay, well, these coaching sessions, we did just 6 coaching sessions spread across 8 weeks. And you will see what happened. On the left side, he has a lot of patterns running. He had 19 out of 20 running at the time of the first test. And after about 8 weeks, he took the second test, which resulted in some great results for him. So 4 patterns, they completely disappeared. 7 patterns were significantly lowered, and 6 of them stayed the same. So what he was really happy about was also his own happiness, which it went from dark gray being unhealthy into the lighter gray, which is actually the healthy part of the graph that we use. Now you will notice that there are 3 patterns that went up slightly. I want to be completely transparent about why. So right about this time of his second test, he discovered a severe medical setback due to a botched surgery that left him in an immense physical discomfort, leading him to use medication for weeks. So this caused him to be nauseous and drained every day, barely making it able to function. And specifically, his punitiveness to others, it rose, and understandably so. He was actively struggling to forgive the surgeon who made that impactful mistake. So this physical crisis, it was make the rest of his psychological process even more miraculous. So when we were finished, he was just completely surprised, and I was also surprised. But he told me in his testimonial that the greatest gift from this method, it wasn't just the shift that is showing on the graph right now, but he told me that for the first time in about 45 years, this method gave him back his hope. So it proved to be to a skeptical, highly educated veteran that it is never too late to break out of the negative spiral. So I was really thankful, and also he was also very thankful that I offered him this test case for me, just to show him and me what the power of this cognitive clarity scan can be. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Maurice, for sharing your story. Yeah, it's always heartbreaking when people need to drink away their trauma, and I was one of those, of course. And I meet many people in AA. I sometimes still go to AA meetings, especially for the stories, and the deep connection with people there. The AA is a very special bunch of people, I would say, but it's a place where when you come in any AA meeting around the world, where people leave their ego outside of the door and come in basically naked and share their deepest pains, and most of them, and mostly it's trauma, why people get addicted to alcohol or drugs. I think that only 3% of people that get addicted is because of their genes, It's most of the time it's because of trauma, passed down trauma, or trauma and warfare. Your client story is not the only story of people in warfare. I hear that drink away their sorrows. And that's basically how this scan was made. It is made by someone who dealt with severe alcohol misuse like myself, and therefore I'm happy to see coaches use this scan where it was originally designed for, basically to help myself. So thank you very much, Maurice.
Yep.
I will go on to sharing what the guild is all about. And actually, I don't have to share that anymore, because what you have seen here in this meeting, that is exactly what the guild is about. The guild is a global network of transformational practitioners. And what I mean by transformation, I mean a network of people who have been, most of them who have been through experiences where they needed to transform themselves. That's how I would say it is. When we started talking with coaches to join our platform and methodology, and when I was doing all these conversations myself, for example, with Annika is one of the women I spoke with. I think was one of the first maybe 100 people I spoke with. And back then when the team was not doing the conversations but myself, I was asking everyone, why have you gone into coaching? Like I don't want to know your credentials, but why have you gone into coaching? And you get stories that come to the surface then. Stories about personal transformation, about loss, about hurt, about needing to dig deeper, about needing to get to a place, face the fears, change. And I heard so many stories. And these stories, one of the things I shared in the beginning, these stories is what connect us all, right? It connects humanity as a whole. And that is basically also what my vision was for the company, is that it's not only a company. No, it's actually more than just a company. It's a movement, and basically my vision was to change society, and it's much bigger now. We gain a lot of traction. People start to talk about us, and people start to notice what they can do with the methodology and the tool. And basically, where we are heading is that we want to give the tool to our practitioners. And we can't do this alone. These practitioners, they form the society, they form different connections with society. And basically, we can change society by giving our tool to the practitioners. So what are we going to do? We are going to focus more and more on the Brain Health Analytics Guild. And why are we going to focus more on this? It's because stage one was the methodology, stage one was actually, the methodology, stage two was going deeper with the data, and stage three is that we now want people to learn together, to teach each other, to share, refine, build. And also we want to give the people a place where they can belong, to a part of a community and to something bigger than themselves. And basically what you have heard now, these couple of stories, we have 4 stories, we have hundreds of more of them to be shared by yourself and by your peers. So we want to invite you to join the guild. It is a tribe, a movement, a place to belong, and it's a global tribe. We currently have people, I always say, from Seattle to Sydney, and it's really like this because Seattle naming it the most left city in the US, and Sydney on the other side of the world. We really have a global movement. So we will open up spots in the next week, and we ask you, if you want to join the guild, please book in some time with our team, with Reinoud. I believe Leanne is also doing calls at the moment. I will be doing some calls because we want to hear from you personally, and to see if you are fit for the guild, because the guild is basically based on 3 pillars. So the first pillar is peer support. So a tribe of exceptional practitioners who challenge, mentor, and grow together with you. We will do monthly meetings, sharing circles, and intervision and supervision. This is to help you better serve your customers. Then the second pillar is the cognitive clarity scan, the methodology, and the software. When you are part of the guild, and most of you are, if not all of you are, entrepreneurs, and we will give you the right to resell the license to your customers at the price that we sell it to our customers as well, and that is 2,500 euros per scan. And on top of that, we will have monthly meetings on how to position yourself, how to build your brand, structure your offers, and become more visible across the BHA ecosystem and beyond. So in one of the guilds, we will have LinkedIn training, we will have positioning training, because we see, and we got the feedback from a lot of the coaches that they actually struggle with positioning themselves within the market, and there was a big ask for that as well. So that is part also of what we are going to do in the guild. Another thing we will touch upon within the guild is, we will have coach spotlights, introduction videos, case studies shared on LinkedIn, YouTube, and our channels, basically all of our channels. And as you know, we believe, and there's a lot of questions about it, I always say I believe in longer trajectories, but we also have coaches that do shorter trajectories. But we also will help with offer creation, client conversion, and building 6 to 24 month transformational programs. On top of that, in the future, we will create retreats and events, and that is a very important part of what we are doing. Most of our gatherings will be online, of course, but we will also plan retreats and events across the globe. So more on that also within the guild. And normally the guild, we will launch the guild very soon also as a separate program, but we want to give everyone the chance that is actually in our community to now join it for under 100 euros per month. So that's a founding member rate, and you will lock that in for life. This gives you the right to resell the software that we have. So basically, it's for us to break even, but also to give you the opportunity to earn on selling the software. So that's it. Thank you all for having joined this meeting, and thank you all for bringing depth to this meeting. So if you feel interested to join, there's a QR code on the screen right now, and we will leave it open for the next week. It is limited. We only want to allow between 50 and 100 people to join the community in the beginning to make it exclusive. And we have opened up, I think, about 100 spots in the next 10 days, calling spots with Reinoud, who is the community manager, with Leanne, and with myself. So if you want to join the guild, and I think it's a no-brainer, because basically if you want to use this within your own practice, then it's a no-brainer to join the guild at this moment in time. And yeah, you can do so on the screen. Thank you all for joining, and we will leave this open for the next 10 minutes so that you can use the QR code on the screen. You will also get an email, and we will post the video of the whole meeting today. We will post it online. But if you want to secure your spot, you can do so by scanning the QR code. Thank you all, and have a great weekend ahead.